The highway was a ribbon of asphalt slicing through the pre-dawn fog, its edges blurred by mist that clung to the earth like a levying thing. Inside the armored transport van, the air was thick with tension, the kind that hums in your bones when you know something's about to break. Officer Ethan Caldwell gripped the wheel of the trailing patrol SUV, his knuckles pale against the steering wheel. In the specially designed compartment behind him, his K-9 partner, Valor, a 3-year-old German shepherd with eyes like polished amber, sat alert, ears twitching at sounds too faint for human perception. The convoy was moving smoothly, but Ethan's gut churned with a premonition he couldn't shake. His father's voice, rough as gravel from years of barking commands to dogs and men alike, echoed in his mind. The moment you think you've got everything under control is the moment it all goes to hell. Ethan was the youngest handler in the department's elite K-9 unit, a position he'd earned through relentless training, but one that came with whispers of favoritism. His father, James Caldwell, had been a legenda man who'd built the county's K-9 program from nothing over 3 decades. When cancer claimed him 6 months ago, it left Ethan with a legacy he VY than the badge on his chest. Today's mission was his first high-stakes transport, 10 maximum security inmates, each one a ticking bomb of violence or cunning, being moved to a state penitentiary 80 miles away. The briefing had been clear, zero margin for error. And yet, as the convoy rolled through the desolate stretch of Highway 47, Valor's sudden shift in posture sent a jolt through Ethan's nerves. The dog's body stiffened, his gaze locked on the transport van ahead, and a low, guttural growl rumbled from his throat. Ethan's eyes flicked to the rear VYEW mirror. "Easy, boy," he muttered, but Valor's growl deepened, urgent, insistent. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The morning had started routinely enough, though the weight of expectation hung over Ethan like a storm cloud. At the county jail, the parking lot buzzed with controlled chaos as officers prepped for the transport. The lead patrol car was commanded by Captain Marcus Vaughn, a grizzled veteran whose face looked carved from stone, his eyes perpetually narrowed, as if sizing up everyone for weakness. Vaughn had made no secret of his doubts about Ethan, a kid who'd landed a coveted K-9 slot too quickly for the captain's liking. Caldwell, Vaughn had barked during the briefing, his voice slicing through the chatter. "This isn't a dog show. Keep that animal locked down, or I'll have you walking traffic duty by sundown." Ethan had nodded, jaw tight, ignoring the smirks from a few older officers. He'd adjusted Valor's tactical vest, whispering, "Let's prove him wrong, buddy." The convoy was a fortress on wheels. Vaughn's lead car, the armored van with its 10 shackled inmates, and Ethan's SUV bringing up the rear. The prisoners were a rogues gallery for VY offenders, 3 gang enforcers, 2 escape artists, and 1 wild card, a former Special Forces operative named Victor Kane. Kane's file was a nightmare. Multiple life sentences for orchestrating heists that left bodies in their wake, plus 2 successful prison breaks. Ethan had memorized every detail, his father's training mantra looping in his head. Know your enemy better than they know themselves. As the convoy left the jail's secured gates, the city's concrete sprawl gave way to open fields and dense forest. The radio crackled every 15 minutes with status checks. "Transport secure, all prisoners accounted for," came the van team's report. "Tail position secure," Ethan responded, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. Valor sat calmly, his presence a grounding force. Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe, the rhythm of the drive almost lulling him into a false sense of security. Then, 22 minutes into the journey, everything changed. Valor's growl was the first warning, sharp and primal. Ethan glanced back, startled by the dog's sudden intensity. Valor's ears were pinned forward, his body coiled like a spring, eyes boring into the transport van as if he could see through its steel walls. "Valor, quiet," Ethan commanded, but the dog ignored Hema first in their year together. The growl escalated into a series of sharp barks, each one laced with urgency. Ethan's pulse quickened. There were no VY Cybele threats, no cars tailing them, no obstacles on the empty highway. Yet Valor was locked onto something, his focus unbreakable. The radio erupted. Tail position. What the hell's that noise? Vaughn's voice was a whip crack of irritation. Caldwell, get your dog under control now. Sir, Valor's alerting to something, Ethan replied, struggling to keep his voice even. I'm trying to. Trying isn't good enough. Vaughn cut him off. Silence that animal, or I'll have you both off this detail. Ethan's cheeks burned, the weight of his inexperience pressing down. He issued another command, Valor, down. But the dog only barked louder, now lunging against the barrier of his compartment, claws scrabbling at the reinforced mesh. From the transport van, muffled voices filtered through the radio prisoners reacting to the commotion. What's the mutt freaking out about? One guard asked, half laughing. Caldwell's pet's probably chasing its tail, another chimed in. The mockery stung, but Ethan's focus stayed on Valor. The dog's BHVY, or was it random? This was no squirrel or stray scent. This was something real. His father's words surfaced, spoken during a late-night training session when Ethan was just a boy. A dog's instincts are sharper than any machine. When they tell you something's wrong, you don't question it, you act. Ethan's hand hovered over the brake pedal, his mind racing. Stopping the convoy on an open highway, based solely on Valor's unexplained alert, would violate every protocol in the book. It could end his career before it truly began. But the alternative, ignoring Valor's warning, felt like a betrayal of everything his father had taught him. Last chance, Caldwell. Vaughn's voice growled over the radio. Shut that dog up, or you're done. Ethan's eyes met Valor's in the rear VYEW mirror. The dog's gaze was unwavering, a silent plea to trust him. In that moment, Ethan made his choice. His foot slammed on the brake, tires screeching as the SUV skidded to a halt on the damp asphalt. The transport van and lead car reacted instantly, brake lights flaring as they pulled onto the shoulder. Dust swirled around Ethan's vehicle, his heart pounding as the radio exploded with Vaughn's fury. Caldwell, you've just thrown this operation into chaos. Resume position immediately. Sir, I'm requesting an immediate inspection of the transport van, Ethan said, gripping the radio. Valor's alerting to something specific. We need to check it. You stopped a high-security convoy because your dog is barking? Vaughn's voice was venomous. You're finished, Caldwell. Through the settling dust, Ethan saw Vaughn's car door fly open. The captain stormed toward him, his face a mask of rage. Ethan stepped out of the SUV, standing his ground as Valor's barks grew more frantic, still fixated on the van. Vaughn loomed over him, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. You have 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't arrest you for insubordination, he snarled. Sir, Valor's trained to detect threats, Ethan said, forcing his voice to stay steady. He's never acted like this before. Something's wrong with that van. You're basing this on a dog's tantrum? Vaughn scoffed. You've been a handler for what, a year? And you think you know better than me? My father trained me my whole life. Ethan shot back, surprising himself with his firmness. He said, when a dog like Valor alerts this way, you listen. I'm asking you to check the van. If I'm wrong, I'll resign on the spot. Vaughn's eyes narrowed, his jaw twitching. Your father's not here, kid, and you're about to learn what happens when you bet your career on a hunch. From a transport van, a guard called out, Captain, what's the holdup? Vaughn turned, barking. Caldwell's dog is throwing a fit. Stay sharp. Ethan seized the moment, opening the SUV's rear door. Valor leapt out, ignoring Ethan's command to heel and bolting straight for the transport van. The dog stopped at the van's rear doors, his barks now a desperate, almost human cry, his body rigid with focus. Other officers had exited their vehicles, watching the scene unfold with a mix of skepticism and unease. The transport guards stood by the van, hands on their weapons, unsure how to proceed. Get that dog away from my transport. Vaughn roared, advancing on Ethan. You've just signed your termination papers. Sir, I believe there's an imminent threat, Ethan said, his voice low but resolute. Please, just check the van. Vaughn stared at him, his fury palpable. After a long, tense moment, he turned to the guards. Fina, open it. Let's show this rookie what happens when you waste everyone's time. The guards hesitated, exchanging glances. Sir, protocol says we don't open the doors outside a secure facility, Officer Torres said cautiously. I know the protocol, Vaughn snapped. Open it. Let's end this circus. Torres inserted his key into the lock, his partner, Officer Hayes, drawing his weapon as a precaution. Prisoners, hands vy Seibel. Torres shouted. The heavy doors swung open with a hiss, revealing the van's dim interior. 10 prisoners sat in 2 rows, each secured with handcuffs, ankle restraints, and chains bolted to the floor. The setup was designed to prevent any movement, yet Valor's focus hadn't wavered. The dog's eyes tracked something or someone inside. Vaughn climbed into the van, his expression grim. Count off, he ordered, MOVYing down the aisle. One by one, the prisoners responded, lifting their cuffed hands. 1 here, 2 present. The count proceeded smoothly until Vaughn reached the 8th prisoner, seated in the shadowed rear, where a faulty overhead light cast flickering gloom. 8, Vaughn called. Present, came a calm, almost amused voice. The prisoner shifted, his chains clinking softly. Valor's reaction was instantaneous, a deep, menacing growl, his body lowering into a predatory stance. Ethan stepped closer, his pulse racing. Captain, Valor's alerting to prisoner 8. Vaughn shot him a withering look, but paused, his eyes catching something off. He leaned closer, inspecting the prisoner's restraints. Your cuffs aren't secure, he said, his tone shifting to cold professionalism. How'd that happen? The prisoner, Victor Kane, smollate a slow, predatory grin that sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Just lucky, I suppose. What happened next unfolded in a heartbeat. As Vaughn reached for his radio, Kane moved with terrifying speed. His loose cuffs fell away, revealing hands free of restraints. One hand seized Vaughn's sidearm, the other locked around the captain's throat. Nobody move, Kane shouted, dragging Vaughn backward. Close that door, or your boss gets a bullet. The van erupted in chaos. Prisoners shouted, some jeering, others cursing. Torres and Hayes raised their weapons, but Kane's use of Vaughn as a human shield made shooting impossible. Kane, stand down, Torres yelled, recognizing the prisoner's face from his file. Ethan yanked Valor back, his training kicking in. His mind raced, piecing together Kane's profile, a master manipulator, a tactician who'd escaped twice before, always Leah VYing bodies behind. Everyone back up, Kane ordered, pressing the gun to Vaughn's temple. 20 feet, now, or I paint the pavement with his brains. The officers retreated slowly, weapons still drawn. Ethan moved with them, keeping Valor close. The dog had gone silent, his eyes locked on Kane with lethal focus. Vaughn's gaze met Ethan's through the van's open doors, no longer angry, but sharp with the clarity of a man in Sir VY Val mode. A subtle nod passed between them trust. Kane's voice cut through the tension. Here's the deal. I want the keys to the lead car, a clear road, and no pursuit for an hour. Simple, clean, nobody dies. Torres took command, whispering into his radio. Dispatch code 10 to 24, hostage situation, Highway 47, mile marker 42. Request tactical team, ET, ASAP. Ethan crouched behind his SUV, one hand on Valor's harness. The dog's comm was under VYing, a sign he'd shifted from alert to operational mode. Kane's eyes scanned the officers, landing on Ethan. You dog boy, step out where I can see you. Ethan exchanged a glance with Torres, who nodded reluctantly. He stepped into the open, stopping 15 feet from the van. Your dog knew something was up, didn't he? Kane said, almost admiringly. Smarter than most of you. He's trained to spot trouble. Ethan replied, his voice steady. What's your play here, Kane? My play was perfect until your mutt threw a wrench in it, Kane said, his tone conversational but laced with menace. Had a crew waiting at the next mile, marker fake roadwork team. Would have been gone before you blinked. Now, you're going to give me those keys. Ethan nodded, MOVYing toward the lead car. As he did, he noticed Valor edging closer to the van, partially hidden by the SUV's shadow. An idea sparked. What about the captain? Ethan asked, keeping Kane talking. You get the car, what happens to him? Depends on how cooperative you are, Kane said. I don't want blood, but I'm not going back to a cage. Ethan retrieved the keys, tossing them to land just beyond the van's steep a deliberate move to force Kane to shift position. There, he said. Where's Valor? Kane asked, his eyes narrowing. Secure to my vehicle, Ethan lied. He's trained to attack armed threats. Didn't want him getting the wrong idea. Kane nodded, satisfied. Smart. Now back off. Ethan held Kane's gaze, careful not to glance at Valor, who was now positioned under the van, in VY Seibel to Kane. He kept the conversation going, probing for weaknesses. You were special forces, right? Planned this down to the second. Rangers, 3 tours, Kane said, a flicker of pride in his voice. I know your playbook better than you do. Vaughn's eyes flicked to Ethan, catching the stall tactic. Water, Vaughn rasped suddenly. Need water. Can't breathe. Ethan seized the opening. We've got water in my vehicle, sir. Let me get it. Shows good faith. Kane hesitated, then nodded. Slow. No tricks. Ethan moved to his SUV, grabbing a water bottle and using the moment to position himself at an angle that would force Kane to turn slightly, away from Valor's hiding spot. He placed the bottle near the keys, another calculated move. Kane would have to look down to grab both, splitting his attention. You're stalling, Kane said, but his voice carried a trace of uncertainty. Where's that dog? Courage isn't in the car, Ethan said, his tone calm but firm. His hand dropped to his side, fingers snapping onto a signal Valor knew by heart. He never was. Kane's confidence faltered, his eyes darting around. You're bluffing, he growled, tightening his grip on Vaughn. Pick up those keys. Now. Ethan bent toward the keys, his movements deliberate. In that instant, Valor struck. The German Shepherd exploded from beneath the van, a silent missile of muscle and focus. Kane caught the movement too late. Valor's jaws clamped onto his gun arm with surgical precision, the bite strong enough to immobilize but not maim. Kane screamed, the gun firing wildly into the air as Valor's momentum yanked his arm upward. Vaughn reacted instantly, slamming his elbow into Kane's gut and twisting free. Ethan closed the distance in seconds, tackling Kane to the ground as Valor held firm. Face down, hands behind your back, Ethan ordered, his voice steady. Kane struggled, but Valor's grip was unrelenting. Ethan gave the release command, Valor out, and the dog backed off, poised to strike again if needed. Ethan cuffed Kane, double-checking the restraints. Officers swarmed in, securing the prisoner as Torres searched him, finding a makeshift lockpick hidden in his shoe. Check the others, Vaughn ordered, rubbing his throat. This was planned. Ethan knelt beside Valor, running his hands over the dog's fur for injuries. Good boy, he whispered, his voice thick with relief. Valor's tail flicked once, his focus still on Kane. Vaughn approached, his expression unreadable. That was a hell of a call, Caldwell, he said. Your dog saved my life. Thank you, sir, Ethan replied, standing. Dispatch just reported they nabbed Kane's crew at the mile marker. Fake roadwork team, like he said. Vaughn nodded, his eyes lingering on Valor. If you hadn't stopped the convoy, we'd be picking up bodies right now. The convoy resumed an hour later, bolstered by a tactical escort. Vaughn insisted Ethan and Valor ride with him in the lead car. The silence between them was heavy, broken only when Vaughn spoke. You risked everything today, kid. Most handlers would have ignored their dog with me breathing down their neck. My father said a dog's instincts are your lifeline, Ethan said. I couldn't let Valor down. Vaughn's lips twitched, almost a smile. Your old man was a pain in my ass, always pushing his crazy training ideas. But he was right about one thing. A dog like Valor isn't just a tool. He's a partner. A week later, Ethan stood in the department's briefing room, Valor at his side. The chief pinned a commendation to Ethan's uniform, citing his and Valor's actions in preventing a catastrophic escape. Vaughn stepped forward, his voice carrying a rare warmth. You trusted your partner when it mattered most. That's what makes a true handler. After the ceremony, Ethan drove to the cemetery where his father's headstone stood beneath an oak. He knelt, placing the commendation pin against the stone. "You were right, Dad," he said softly. "About valor. About trust. About everything." Valor pressed against him, a silent anchor. Ethan smiled, the weight of his father's legacy no longer a burden but a guide. "Come on, boy," he said, standing. "We've got more work to do." As they walked back to the patrol car, the horizon glowed with the promise of dawn, and Ethan felt ready for whatever came next because he and Valor were a team, forged in trust and proven in fire.